Hey everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at this 2021 Lexus LC500 convertible. I had an LC loaner earlier this year, but it was a coupe and it was also the hybrid model. That's the LC500H. I liked that vehicle a lot, but this thing is in a whole different league. The hybrid's cool. It returns around 30 miles per gallon. This one will net closer to 20 miles per gallon. But beyond that, it's all upside with the V8. The driving experience of this thing is completely different than it is in the hybrid. This thing is loud. It sounds really good. It's fast. Both the V8 and the hybrid are about the same on paper in terms of like 0 to 60 and things like that, but this thing is a totally different experience. It feels more like a high performance sports car, and yeah, since driving it, my opinion of the LC has completely changed. I liked the hybrid. I really love this one with the V8. Additionally, you'll probably notice that this one is a convertible. The convertible is new for 2021, so the LC came out for 2018, and it's been on sale pretty much unchanged for, what, 3 going on 4 years now. So the convertible joins for 2021. It's only available with the V8 engine, which is fine with me, and it adds, what, about $8,000 to $10,000 onto the price of an LC. Speaking of price, this one as equipped is about $111,000. It's one of the more expensive vehicles in Lexus's lineup. One misconception about these that I touched on pretty heavily in my previous LC video, I'll link it below. This thing is a grand touring car, so it's not a hardcore sports car. It's not really like a 911 competitor. It's more of a Mercedes SL competitor, so it's fast, it's fun to drive, but it's also really comfortable, and it won't beat you up over long drives like something like a Supra or a 911. I've already given a pretty thorough overview of this thing in my previous video, so in this video I want to focus on the convertible top and the driving experience with the V8 engine. I think most people will agree that this is a pretty good looking vehicle. It's a risky design, but it's a risk that I think is paid off. Convertible profile is a little bit different. The car is pretty haunch heavy. Can I use that term? Rear deck lid is very flat. Convertible top altogether is pretty small. Anyway, enough stammering. Let's take a look at how the top works. So you probably remember the LC has these very unique door handles. We'll go ahead and turn it on. So the controls for the convertible top are underneath this piece right here. If you didn't know it was there, you might miss it. So you've got 2 buttons under here, one for controlling the top and then one for putting the windows up and down. So we'll put the top down. And back up. And there we go. Car doesn't like that, but I just wanted to show you how everything works back here. So the rear deck lid pivots up and backward, which exposes the area where the top sits when it's down. The top pops off of these 2 connection points here. You don't have to do anything manually. Folds in a few places. 1, 2, 3, 4, call it 5 separate parts of the soft top. They all fold down onto each other accordion style, and it stows back in here. A lot of stuff going on under this cowl back here. Whoa, do you see that? These things pivoted back in. I imagine they needed to move out of the way so that this part of the top could clear. But you can see folds up pretty tightly. here's the LC with the top down. Hope that exhaust isn't too loud on camera. Perfect color combination on this one. White exterior, and it's pearl white. And on the interior, something interesting. Right away I noticed that there are two different colors of red. The first thing I noticed is that the seats are a different color than this red. And then I noticed that the door panels are the same color as the seats. Then I was noticing that this door panel includes this dark red, call it maroon, but this door panel does not. And I was a little confused by that until I realized that the maroon part is only for the cockpit. It's only for the driver's area. So you've got maroon on the center console, maroon on the driver's door panel, and then just black over on the passenger door panel and pretty much everywhere else. Another cool feature you get with the LC convertible, you might be able to hear them, but this car comes with heated headrests. They call them neck warmers, actually. So we'll go to headrest, and then you can turn them on here just like you do the heated seats in the steering wheel. And the heat actually comes out of this little vent at the base of the headrest here, and it's even got a little paddle for directing the heat down or up. It's a really nice feature. We've been driving this car in the mornings when it's been cold, and even with the top up, the neck warmers are really nice. One thing that I don't like about this car, and there's really only one thing, is this infotainment system. You saw me use it there briefly, and it's offensively bad. I don't use that term lightly, but when you've got a vehicle that costs $111,000, has phenomenal driving dynamics, exceptional build quality. I mean, this thing is rock solid. It's all leather. It is phenomenal all around, except for this infotainment system, which is pretty much the worst thing in the industry. This touchpad is atrocious. The screen graphics don't match the rest of the car's design. They're very dated. It's not a touch screen. It's finicky. I mean, even just to adjust the heated seats. Say you're on the radio screen and you want to turn on the heated seats. Picture yourself doing this while driving down the road. You have to go to menu, all the way over to climate, and just swiping on these is even finicky. But you go all the way over to climate, then you have to go all the way back over to seat/steering, click on that, and then swipe over to heated seats. Flick it a couple times if you want to turn them off. You just flick it once to turn them all the way up, but to turn them completely off, you have to go 3 times. And then and only then are your heated seats turned off. It's an awful system. It is so bad. And it's really unfortunate because outside of this infotainment setup, this car is great. They don't use enough buttons here. I get that they probably wanted to be minimalist, but you'll notice that there are no heated seat buttons in this car. It's enough of a reason to maybe look elsewhere if you're considering buying one of these. But beyond that, the car is incredible. Let's put the top up. This car is so much better with the V8. The hybrid's cool. Like I said, it gets about 30 mpg. This thing, you give up about 10 miles per gallon combined. If you're spending $111,000 on a car though, I don't think you're that concerned with fuel economy. So we are in normal mode. You've got your different drive modes up here around the gauge cluster. I'm gonna leave it in normal and pull out here. Then we'll get into the sport modes. There's 50, 0 to 60 for the convertible, I think is quoted at 4.7 seconds. This car feels fast. It feels fast. Cars either feel fast or they don't feel fast, and this one feels very fast. The red line is at 7,100 RPM, so this engine will get up there before it shifts gears, and I think that really adds to the visceral experience that you get with this vehicle. I'm probably gonna keep bringing that up because I wasn't really expecting that from this car. The hybrid takes most of the emotional experience out of the LC. Acceleration is about the same. I think they're both rated at about 4.5 seconds. You don't get the sounds with the hybrid. You don't get the feeling out of the hybrid. You don't get the behavior out of the hybrid. I think if you're buying one of these, as big of a proponent as I am for Toyota hybrids, I think you gotta go with the V8. So when it shifts, you get a little extra noise out of the exhaust. This car is fun. It is much more engaging to drive than I was expecting it to be. So the customer base for this vehicle is a little bit older. It's someone who wants comfort and has the buying power to spend over $100,000 on a vehicle. And that customer is gonna want, most of the time, they're going to want comfort. And you buy this because you wanna be able to go on long drives in it, even though it is low to the ground, even though it's basically just a two-seater. You buy this car because you want to be able to take it on long drives, but you still want to be able to have fun with it sometimes, and you're certainly able to do that. So you're able to goose it a little bit around turns. Yeah. So we've been in normal mode so far. Let's go sport. You've got with this thing normal, Sport S, Sport S Plus, and then a custom, a comfort, and an eco mode. Toyota and Lexus had supposedly been planning an LCF model, so that would be a super high performance version of this vehicle, and apparently with everything that's happened here in 2020, that vehicle has been canceled, but the word is that they're still working on a turbocharged V8 that will eventually find its way into this vehicle. As is, this one makes 471 horsepower. Mind you, peak horsepower comes at 7,100 RPM and 398 pounds-feet of torque, which comes on in full at 4,800 RPM. So, not only does this engine make a lot of power, but it's very high revving, which just makes it even more fun to drive. Naturally aspirated means that you don't have to wait for a turbocharger to spool up. It's just linear. This is one of the best engines out there. Seats are pretty deeply bolstered. I believe these are sport seats. There's also a more comfort-oriented seat you can get in the LC. Let's go Sport S Plus. Ten-speed automatic transmission. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. And I think that's going to about wrap up our review of the LC500 convertible here. This car's been a lot of fun. I probably say that a lot, but I expected it to be somewhat subdued like the hybrid is. And then as soon as I turned it on and the exhaust growled and crackled, I knew this thing was completely different from the hybrid. Both vehicles have incredible craftsmanship. I think the design is good. The infotainment system is not good, but if you can get around that, and it is something that you interact with pretty often anytime you sit down to drive the vehicle, but if you can get around that, I think the LC is one of the best new vehicles on sale today. It sits in a segment that isn't really that popular. These Grand Touring cars are somewhat niche. You buy a Grand Tour if you want something that is sporty, but also comfortable, not necessarily practical, but not as punishing as a sports car. It's a very specific customer that buys one of these vehicles, but I have to say, yeah, I think the LC is a pretty safe buy for anyone out there looking for a Grand Tourer. And I think that wraps it up. So, thanks for watching. And I just put the top down here and I realized there's probably one more thing I should mention, and that is that wind buffeting really isn't especially bad when the top's down. You've got this, can you see it? This clear piece of glass right here that helps to cut down on wind cycling through the cabin while you're driving. The back is also somewhat high altogether, so you're kind of sitting down in here. And no worse than on your average convertible, probably better than on your average convertible in terms of wind noise.